The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Stand up and live your life. Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Hands up high.
Hey. It's kind of a trick. That's the first thing I wait for. I wait for them to where they're going to sit. Because I got two separate chairs and a couch, so I see where they go.
And you can read a person too by what I like to do to people to see how trusting they are or not trusting is I keep stepping closer to them, and if they move away from me, I'm like, oh, they're really uncomfortable with space. And you do that sometimes. I'll get up next to you and you'll back up a step or two, and I'm like, what's up, Joe?
Space.
So you don't like your personal space invaded. And
Well,
yet
it's not conscious.
Well, it
just kind of happens.
Well, no, it isn't conscious. I know you don't know you're doing it. But we just want to take a moment to thank Jay Jung from City Athletic Club for sponsoring our Rise Above show. City Athletic Club is located on Sahara Avenue, and it's a semi-private club, and it's very nice inside. So if you're looking for a more quiet, intimate type environment to train in where there's not a million people in there, it's a really nice place, and trainers are there with their clients, so it's mostly a trainer's gym where you'll see trainers working individually with their clients. So if you want a more intimate environment to train in, that's the place to go. Joe's a trainer over there, personal trainer. He's been a trainer for over 30 years, and he does diet, contest prep, anywhere from the beginning client all the way to, people that want to compete or they've been working out for a long time. He's also a marriage and family counselor. He just got his license last month. He passed, so he's officially licensed by the state of Nevada. So if you're looking for a family counselor for marriage, your children, family, things like that you're having problems with, you can always look him up on the internet. It's josephperroni.com, and that's his website, which showcases the counseling end of things, his personal training business, and himself. You can reach him there. Also, you can reach him on Facebook. He has a Facebook page, a Joe Perroni Wellness page, which is for personal training.
God, I sound like a real narcissist, don't I?
I set up all these pages, so I would be the narcissist for you, but it's good advertising. If you're not, the thing with social media is if you're not on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all these social media sites, and you're not advertising your business or your product, you're kind of a dinosaur, because people are not buying newspapers as much. Magazines, we're trying to recycle, so people really don't. I don't take the time to look in a book for what a service I need. I go to Google. I go on my phone and I type in a service that I'm looking for, and all these names will come up. And so they're able to find you on Facebook if they type in josephperroni.com. Everything about you is in the search engine. So your bodybuilding shows are there. Your marriage and family psychology is listed in there. Your Facebook page is listed there. And it's the same thing with myself. If people want to look up Heidi Mancini, you'll find me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm a hairstylist at Body Spa West. I'm also a wellness coach at City Athletic Gym. And I also do the social media and all that for the radio show, TV show that we do every week. Yeah. So I'm the person to get a hold of if you'd like us to help you sell your product or service or business, advertising. I'd be the person to talk to for that. And then, of course, you do all the writing for the show. He's the writer, and I'm the gabber, as you can tell. So, anyway.
Okay. Ready to start?
Yeah.
So today's show, I want to do the topic on the goal of an interdependent relationship, which is also part and parcel with that is the goal of the differentiation of self. Okay, so what the heck does that mean, right? Well, just to say right off the top, the differentiation of self is the number one reason for for divorces now. So we'll get into that. So that should pique your interest right there. But nobody is really going to say the reason why I want a divorce is because I want to differentiate myself. Nobody's going to say that. But if you look at all of the reasons why people put into why they're getting divorced, let's go with about 75% of the people who file for divorce first, they're women. And typically, It's because they want to find themselves in so much way, shape, or form. They've given up too much of their life.
Right. Well, can we backtrack that just
sure.
a second? The cultural thing with women, and it's changing. The good news is it is changing. So
Right.
in another 50 years from now, we probably won't be having this conversation.
That's true.
So back when I was being raised, my mother's time, my mother's 70, so, when she was a teenager, and then of course some of that culture mixed into when I was being raised, and of course my dad too, he was a strict Italian. So, I had a really good dad, I had a good mom, and when my parents divorced, it was because of the differentiation of self with my mom, because my mom at a very young age bought into the whole Cinderella thing of, this guy's going to rescue me, he's going to take care of me, he's going to, give me a good life, because my mother came from an environment where she was pretty much an orphan, she didn't have any security, so she put her identity into what she thought my dad could do for her.
Right.
Well, he did a lot for my mom, and she admits that now. But as the years went on, and my mother was tied down with 4 children, she didn't have a car of her own, she didn't have a job, she didn't have her own money. She finally went out and got a job, and she really liked the idea of having a little bit of her own spending money, being able to go out on a Saturday night with my dad to a movie or wherever they would go on a date night, and I was old enough to babysit. And of course then, that's when all the stuff starts, because she starts to realize, I like the idea of my own money. I like having my car. She got her own car. She didn't have to share my dad's car anymore. And my mother started to realize who she was. And when that started to happen, her likes that she liked, unfortunately didn't coincide with the life that she had kind of molded into with my dad.
Right.
And of course my dad was perfectly happy. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you happy? And it wasn't that she wasn't happy, she just wanted to do other things and live her life a little bit differently. When I divorced my ex-husband, it was the same thing. Surprisingly, I was independent. I was raised by my dad to say, you better have a career, do something, go to school, please don't get pregnant right away, because that'll ruin your life, and I'll kill you, and I'll go kill the guy that did it. That was the kind of thing my dad said. So my dad was weird that way, because he was from a culture that was very controlling, and I don't mean controlling in a bad way.
No, I understand.
But he came from an environment that you took care of your family, you paid the bills, you went out to work. My dad worked 3 jobs to keep, money coming in the house. But yet he raised his daughters in a way where he said, I want you to have a career, and I want you to have a good paying job, or do something that makes you happy. So you don't want to ever be totally reliant on a man. You want to make sure
Right.
that if something happens, you can take care of yourself. So we did that, and ironically, culturally, I kind of did the same thing my mom did, in a sense that I got married very young because I was looking for security, although I had my career. I was started in it before. I wasn't really started in it before I got married. But I kind of bought into the whole thing, and you kind of start living somebody else's life for whatever reasons that you get into the relationship for. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, this is not... My epiphany was when my daughter was born. I was 30 years old and I had this baby, and all of a sudden I grew up. It was like overnight I went, I'm responsible for a human being, and how I live and how I conduct myself is going to affect this child. It's not just about me and him anymore. And then as I started to just get more mature,
Right.
I just grew away from him. And they don't call it they don't call it differential of self. They call it life crisis, midlife crisis. I got to go find myself.
That's the actual term
they
that
put all
people
these
use.
stigmas on it, and they make it sound like a negative. And unfortunately, if you buy into the crap that society tells you as a young person, I don't think it happens as much with men, because I think men are told at a very young age, these are expectations to be a man, period. So you do these things, this is how your life's going to be. You'll have a good job, you'll attract a good mate, you'll be an eligible man, or whatever they call eligible bachelor.
Right.
But women are still, in a way, still caught up in the cultural
Yeah,
BS.
let me go back a little bit. So we're talking about an interdependent relationship, which should be, by theory anyway, the ultimate type of relationship. Now, what 2 consenting people want to do and they think is great, that's fine. But overall, interdependent is what we're looking for. What you're describing was more prevalent a long time ago, but still there is what we call a dependent relationship. Both partners are actually dependent upon another human being to make themselves whole, which there's some type of romantic quality to that. The whole, Tom Cruise, whatever that movie was, I can't think of the name of it right now, it says, you complete me,
Yeah.
that type of thing. that doesn't work. That means you're dependent upon another human being to be happy, right? And that doesn't work. And of course, as you say, times are changing, and it's true. Women now are in the workforce, obviously. Women can make just as much or more money than men. That's true. But the interesting thing is that it seems like women are moving up the ladder in terms of how much they make and how much power they have in the business world. But psychologically, there's still that thing where they want to be taken care of. You don't often see a woman who is mature and is financially stable going after a guy who makes less money. They still feel very comfortable looking for a guy who makes as much as they do, or to climb the branch a little bit higher, because there's still something in there where they still feel dependent upon somebody else making them secure.
Well, and I think what women do too when they're in a financial stability situation where they make a lot of money or they have enough money to survive, they just say, I don't want a man anymore. So it goes full spectrum one way or the other, where
Right.
Because we're dependent on each other. I'm dependent on you as far as I'm with somebody that I want to work, be ambitious, take care of yourself in that sense, because it takes care of me and vice versa.
Right.
But our relationship was established that way. We came into the relationship as two individuals that kind of had already kind of gone through our own things, and you knew, early on in our relationship, you wanted to get a master's degree and go to school.
Right.
And there was things that you definitely knew that you needed to do to feel better about yourself. I don't know if it's better about yourself or just more.
Yeah, I mean, we all come here with a certain amount of potential, and I want to at least fulfill mine. And so this might sound really ugly to some people out there, but when and you know this, we've had this conversation, what's one of the most important things you can give me? And I would say, leave me alone. It means give me my space to be who I need to be. If I need to go to school, don't get on my back that I'm not spending enough time at home. Or if I'm studying, you need to leave me alone because I need to get good grades. If I'm working in order to be a better person and to be able to bring more money in, all these things, get off my back. Because I'm trying to be a better me. As with you, I would never tell you who you can work with, what times to work. You're an adult, you're mature, you're a really good business person. I trust you in your judgment of what to do. There's nothing more satisfying than that, I wouldn't think, about someone giving you the latitude to be who you need to be when you need to be. And that's the essence of an interdependent relationship. The other thing you said was really interesting to me, because a lot of people do this. They start off being dependent upon somebody, and then they start to do a little better financially. And then they have this attitude. And again, most of psychology is about 80-85% is based on the feminine thought, because they're selling it to women because women buy it. And so, of course, you're not going to make the therapies masculine because it's not going to attract the woman, and you're not going to make any money. So here's an example. We talk about women's empowerment. And a lot of that is women saying, I'm going to rise up, I'm going to be me, I'm going to be an individual, I don't need a man. That is not what we're talking about here. That's not an interdependent relationship. That's just trying to be independent. And if you want to be independent, that's great, but you're not going to have a relationship. When we talk about women that want to be, I'm independent and I don't need anybody, that's great. But that's not conducive to having a mutual, reciprocal, loving relationship at all. It means that when you want to stand up for yourself as the I'm a self and I'm me, that's what Helen Reddy would say, I'm woman, hear me roar. It's a standing up. It's not a pushing away of other human beings. And that's the big difference. When somebody stands up for themselves and says, this is me, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I am, it's a beautiful, happy moment. It shouldn't be an ugly, pissed off moment where you just hate every man you see and you hate other women because of the competition they give you.
But I think the sad part of all that is that, and anybody that's gone through this, you realize that when you do finally say, this is who I am, these are the things that I like, this is how I kind of want to live my life, you do end relationships and you will lose people in your life. I know in my marriage it was that way when I finally said, I'm not okay being just who I was at that time. I needed more something. I don't know what it was. The person I was with was like, well, I'm perfectly content with what's going on, and I'm perfectly happy. And, you know, it comes down to, you almost have to initially have an attitude of a pissed off, I don't give a shit attitude, because it almost puts you in survival mode, where you go, you know, I have something to do here, and for me to keep going this direction, I've got to have like an F you attitude for this old relationship, because it keeps, for some reason, that person will still want to keep pulling you back into the relationship, your friendships, because misery likes company. I had married friends at the time that, you know, they were either, you know, for me getting a divorce or not getting a divorce, and depending on which side of their marriage they were on, you know, that was, you know, oh, well, you should be careful, because, you know, you're gonna have to take care of yourself now. You might not have enough money. What if? Well, what if I decide to leave this marriage and things go better for me? What if? Or what if I stay and I know what I had. I mean, I already knew what I had, and I knew it wasn't going to really change. So I said, well, I can stay in it and be content and try and do my own thing. But I think the girls that are, the generation of women that are coming up now, I don't know if I'll be alive to see it. I can maybe see it in my daughter a little bit, because I kind of raised her, shouldn't say a kind of, I had a F you attitude in a sense, to say, you know, I want you to take care of yourself, and I want you to be a loving person, and I want you to have somebody in your life, but the main thing for you to do is to always put yourself first. And I didn't mean that in a narcissistic way. I meant, because she doesn't have any brothers or sisters either, so Ava's pretty much alone in the world, so she's going to have to extend herself to friendships and maybe external family people that are in her life. And so I didn't raise her not to like men or disrespect men or think men were useless. I did raise her in a sense that it's up to you to make money, and it's up to you to take care of yourself. And then if you meet somebody, that's great. They're supposed to complement your life. And hopefully all the other mothers are raising their sons and daughters that way, and I think they are. I think we're in a culture right now where we're kind of a crossover in between what's coming into the future with not this gender-specific roles, and I think that's what causes this differential of self, because as a culture we've bought into for so many years, this is a woman's role, this is a man's role. And John said it before. He said, you bought into the whole, you need to color your hair. We're talking about coloring hair. He said, you bought into the whole culture that you're not attractive if you don't dye your gray hair. Yeah, he's right. Because as a culture, women are pretty much told by everything that we see visually, and we can all say don't buy into that because it's just advertisement. It is what it is. But again, we always come back to, okay, be yourself and be who you want to be and be comfortable, but you have to be strong enough that everything that's going on around you, including men, do prefer, you know, women that have themselves together. Gay men, they'll tell you that too. They'll say there's no such thing as an ugly woman. There's a lazy woman. No woman is ugly. They all have beauty. It's just how much work do you want to put into it. And I think because there's been gender expectations, I think that's where there's been the conflict, because it's equally on the man's side too, that a man can get confused by all the mixed signals too, because he's told at a young age, this is what's expected of you. You go out and you make a job. These guys now, they're in their 30s. They're not being told that, and they're perfectly fine with, hey, my wife makes 6 figures, I'm good with it, I'll stay home with the kids. So they also, so what happens to the men now? If all of a sudden one day they wake up and they go, I don't want to be at home anymore with these kids, and I'm going to go find myself. I bet you another 100 years from now we're going to see that.
You know, I don't know, it's interesting, because we always thought that testosterone was this thing, right? Like in utero, if a baby gets this testosterone wash, they automatically are starting to become something different than what a woman is. And it's like, I don't know if that's so true anymore. You know, it's like when I see it, it's really amazing. Like, I think women are actually more competitive than men. Like, we keep hearing how men are so competitive and want to kill each other. I don't have any men like that I know. Well, but I know women who are friends with each other who hate each other. You know, they hate each other most of the time.
Well, I think there's a wake up. It's like a wake up thing when women finally realize that, you know, they're what the things that they're capable of, and that they do have some control over their lives and their decisions. There's empowerment behind that. But then you get the feminist side of it that takes that and they run with it and they make it such a nasty, you know, man-hating type thing. And I think that part of it is really wrong, and as far as what's going on.
Yeah, there's two sides. Well, there's a lot of sides, but the side that you're talking about, right? Like, Let's just take feminism, for example, on the ugly side, when it's pushed too far over. If there's a man-hating element to it, it means that no matter how individual you think you are, how much money you make, there's something wrong. There's something wrong psychologically because you can't connect to other people in a comfortable way. People who are strong unto themselves don't have anger to other people. They just don't do that because they allow other people to have their own thoughts and opinions and behaviors, as long as it doesn't infringe on you in a way that's going to like hurt you. But so there's something wrong when somebody's so angry at the world, like, because again, it's orange juice theory, right? Like you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. So if you see a person who's always angry and hating people, well, that's what's coming out of them. Well, where do you think it came from? There's something inside that's going wrong. So in terms of interdependent relationships, it actually used to be something that was kind of thrown off to the side because, again, the 80-85% of psychotherapy now that's feminized, they hate this theory because this theory says, listen, you need to take responsibility for who you are. So each partner, their number one goal of each partner is not to make the other person happy. It's to make you the best possible person that you can be and to totally fulfill your potential. And then you become a better partner. It's never put upon your partner to make you happy. That's an impossibility.
Okay, but I'm going to interrupt that thought too.
Yeah.
Back now that girls, it's funny because you see girls now, they're in college and they're not getting married. Most of these people today, they're not getting married until their early 30s, if at all. You know, you're seeing a shift too where, so I think the I can't say that word,
I know, it's hard, differentiation, right?
Differentiation of self, the longer a person goes without getting married, the more apt you are to find yourself at a younger time in your life because you've not attached yourself as a young, immature, I don't know what I'm going to do person, because guys do it too. If a man gets married at a very young age, you know, they may settle into what the cultural thing is to say this is what a man does. But I equally think that it happens to a man too when he starts approaching his 30s to mid 40s, early 40s. That's when you hear men have affairs, they cheat, you know, they do their stuff too. Because all of a sudden this young boy that got married at 20 something, all of a sudden is realizing he's in his 30s. I've spent the first 12 years of my life raising kids and taking care of a woman, you know, that type of thing. So I think as time goes on again, you get yourself by building your self-esteem by accomplishing things, and it's by setting goals and completing a goal. And when a woman has a baby, I don't think we attach ourselves to that as being a job or a goal. It's something that naturally, if you're in a relationship and you're in a family, you're going to have a child. But when a woman goes out, and raising kids is hard work. I have one, and I know I'm not minimizing that as a job or whatever. But there's something to be said for when you can go out in a college and you can take a course and you do well. It's another thing if you go out into the workforce and you can be self-employed. I'm self-employed. I'm successful. I'm happy with the work I do. I love people, and there's a lot of fulfillment in that for me. And this isn't a dig at you or anything with the relationship, but if something was to happen to you tomorrow, yes, it would be a void in my life. It would be different. It would be all of that if you died or whatever could happen, right?
Right.
But I have the confidence to know that I have enough skills and enough of my own identity with who Heidi is to say, well, okay, this is going to change my life, but I'm able to move forward, kind of a thing. And I think this finding yourself thing is not going to be so relevant in generations to come.
I hope it's not.
I hope not.
But see, an interesting thing.
But take out the hate part of it, because what I see as a culture is women not liking men now. All of a sudden, the women are finding themselves at a younger age because they're going to college, they're in their 30s, early 30s, they're making good money, and now we have a culture of girls saying, I don't need a man, I'm going to have a baby without one. So now, now we're going
right, and that's
in
the
some
other part
direction
too.
that-
That's the talk that we talked about, that individualistic, which is not healthy either. It's interesting what you said before. Like, okay, so let's say you map out a scenario where I die, and you say, it's sad, but you'll be fine. In your mind, when you're saying it, you're probably feeling like I'm going to be hurt by you saying that. right? Like, that's cultural.
Well, it's cultural because people would go, "What is wrong with you that you?"
But
I can't go on because in the stories.
But see, your relationship right now was with the culture, not with me.
Right.
Because if you know me, why would I want you to be sad? I don't get any benefit out of it in any way.
No, but the point is the sadness part of it. Everybody would go through that. When somebody dies or somebody leaves your life, whatever it might be, there is an element of grief. There's an element of sadness that we all have to go through. But my point being is that it's not like I'm so dependent on you, and we're talking about differential of self, that I'm not so dependent on you for everything, my emotional needs, my financial needs. My whole identity is tied up in my life with you. I know women that lose their spouses.
But see, you don't even have
lost.
to. You don't have to sell me on it, right? Like, I would agree with that 100%, and I would want that. And not only is there an element of grief, there's a massive amount of grief. But that's beside the point. As we sit now, I would want you to be a fully functioning, happy adult. Like, there are people out there that actually don't want their partners to be happy and fully functional adults. Like, they would want their partner to be sad if something happened, you know? And think about that. It's like, and that goes back to before of having, most people don't have real relationships. They have dependent relationships. And I don't mean just to say women are like that. Men are like that too. Men are just as much like that. Because you see, when a woman dies, men are like 7 times more likely to commit suicide than a woman. So think about that. So if there's any man going, yeah, I'm fully functional, I'm totally happy, I know, life, and I have great self-esteem. Right, until your wife dies, and then most of the time you're the one who's going to be killing yourself. So again, that would be a dependent relationship. But then when you lose something, you realize, oh my God, like half my life's gone. It should never be like that. In a lot of therapies, again, go to certain therapies, not this one, it used to deal with more the emotional part of it, of healing somebody's emotional wounds and being so childlike in the attitude. Like, I know that this can hurt you. I know you must feel like this. And although it sounds good, interdependent relationship theory would say that that's making somebody into a child. Here's an example that everybody knows. So you're going to go out on a date, and usually the woman might say, does it look like I've gained any weight when they, wear a dress or whatever? Well, okay, so if you're the ultra guy in a attachment therapy type relationship, you would soothe the woman by saying, I know society has sold to you that you only look good when you look a certain way, and you're only lovable if you look a certain way. And right now, because of the holidays, you might not be feeling as lovable, but let me know that you're perfect just the way you are.
You're
fluffier. You go through this whole long process to baby somebody into making them feel good. And interdependent relationships are based upon 2 strong people. They would not enter the conversation that way. This sounds a little cold, but this is how the conversation would be. So you feel like you've gained some weight. Well, I don't know. What do you think? Well, I don't know. I bought a scale. Step on the scale, and you can tell me if you've gained weight. There is a factual thing here. There's a reasonable way to look at this, right? Like, if you've gained 3 pounds, guess what? You've gained 3 pounds. So what happens is, if you put somebody in the position of saying, no, it looks like you've lost weight, and then this person gets on the scale, they know that their partner's a liar. So we're already not being authentic. So what we really get into it is, why would one person ask another person, did I lose weight, if they know that they didn't? Because now they're putting the other person on the hook for lying and saying, listen, the only way I can be happy right now is if you lie to me. And that's not a good basis for a relationship.
I don't think it's lying. I get what you're saying. I think it's almost like you're they might be looking for validation, or the fact that, let me make sure that you still like me, although, it's no different if somebody has an accident, right? And say they have they got hurt and they have scars or whatever, and you say to your partner, do you think I look different because I have these scars all over my body? I personally think that in a situation like that, if somebody was to say, well, look at yourself in the mirror and tell me what you see, I think that lacks empathy, and I think they're okay. And I'm not saying what you just said was wrong, but I think what the other person is trying to do is to make sure they're still lovable, even
Right.
though there might be an element of them that might they know is different.
No, listen,
you know?
I agree with you, but what I'm doing is I'm just putting front and center today a type of theory. I'm not saying it's 100% right, and I'm not saying I agree with it 100%. I do agree with it mostly. What this theorist would say, and I keep forgetting his name, David Schnock. That's how you pronounce
like
Schnock.
Schnocker.
That's how you, that's how you pronounce his name. But he has what he's called crucible theory. In other words, you're going to get in there and you're going to face the facts. He talks about empathy, and it's like, okay, let's say I'm trying to get you to validate me, right? And I want to say something to you, and you think it's the dumbest thing you've ever heard. And you could say to me, listen, Joe, that was awesome, if you thought it was. Or you could say, you know, I don't really understand, and that sounds kind of not, I don't really get it. Well, either way, you were honest, and if I'm an adult, I should be able to say, okay, I can validate myself. I feel good about myself that I told you the truth and I didn't lie. And you don't have to validate me. There's a reason. Because I'm not the same age as you. I'm not the same sex as you. We've not had many of the same experiences. We had different parents. We grew up in different places. So it's totally normal for you not to be able to truly and totally understand me.
Right.
And that's what an adult would say. And that's what he talks about, to be able to be truly honest in the presence of another, to know that you can look somebody in the eye and be totally loving and caring and not change them.
Well, the thing is understanding each other too, as far as like when I get tweaked about women's issues, and I'll admit this, when I get tweaked and I hear a man saying things about women, I get tweaked. And the reason I get tweaked, and I have to check
what are they
myself on that, is because the first thought that comes to my head is, you're not a woman and you've never lived in a woman's body. So I remember going to a doctor years ago, and I was going to get a pap smear, and he said, "Oh, honey, I know how that feels." I go, "You fucking kidding?" I didn't say the F word. I looked up at him, and I got, your legs are in the stirrups, and I kind of looked up, and I go, "You did not just tell me you know how that feels, right?" So my point is that really, he says, oh, honey. Not only did he not say my name, he said,
better.
It gets better. He goes, "Honey, I know exactly what you felt, right?" It was when I had my daughter. And I said, "You're kidding me, right? There's no way you know how that feels." So to me, that's a lie. It's not a
that's
truth.
a weird relationship.
Where
but
if he would have said to me, I don't know how that feels because I'm a guy, I'm a man, I'm a male, I'm your doctor, whatever. I don't know how that feels. I could only imagine, or something. But to have and those are things. And when men will say, well, women should act a certain way, or just certain things, like when I hear, even with politics right now, when guys will say things like about abortion and things, I don't care, honestly, what people do 90% of the time. I think I should have a right to do what I want with my body, my life, whatever. But when I hear a man go, well, I think women shouldn't be allowed to get an abortion, really? Well, you're the one that 90% of the time, you guys get women pregnant and you're gone. Or the women are raising their children by themselves. So I don't have
That
a lot
happens.
of, when I hear that, I go, oh,
Yeah.
and I have to catch myself and go, don't go crazy on this guy, because he has his own thought. I get it. But when you're talking to me as far as how a female feels, and I don't know how it feels to be a guy to have to be Mr. I got to make all the money all the time and be responsible.
And you know what?
I don't know how that feels.
Yeah, but you want to know what? You'll never know.
No, because
And
I'm
that's
not a
okay.
dude, and I don't want to know.
But that's okay. Do you know what it's like?
When women say I want to come back and be a man, I'm like, I don't want the responsibility of having to make money, have all that. Because at the end of the day, even in our relationship, there's a certain amount of me that I probably depend on you more, which I probably shouldn't do because we're talking about that today, that I depend on you to keep the house going and keep a job and keep my lifestyle, at least what we've established.
And you know what you forget sometimes?
Together,
And you know what you forget sometimes?
What?
That I'm a human being.
Right.
Just because I have testosterone doesn't mean that I
Right.
have the answers automatically.
Right. And I do
as a
assume
man,
that
I have to act
sometimes.
like I do.
But Joe knows the answers to everything. He knows it all.
Yeah, sure. It's like, but here's something interesting, right? Like, just going back and forth a little bit about this, is that you can have a really caring, loving relationship with somebody and not have any idea how they feel. Like, that's odd. Like, again, in feminine type of therapy, it's like, okay, I have to know exactly. You need to tell me everything. No, you don't, and you never will know. Here's something, and I hear this. I actually don't have this conversation with people. The one I'll just bring up now. Most people don't want to talk about it because they don't really want to look at the situation. But it seems like a lot of women are very, very concerned about their attractiveness and are they good in bed, this type of thing. Can they attract a man? It's you read Cosmo, and it's like 85 ways to please a man. Listen, you're making a lot of drama out of nothing. Listen, because by the time a man or boy is 12 years old, you know, it's like you could rub up against a flat surface for like 30 seconds and be done. Like, listen, you're trying to make a huge, massive, like, thing to be like, oh my God, I learned trigonometry. It doesn't take anything to get a guy off. Let's stop
here's
acting like.
Here's the 3 F's. I got 3 F's for you. It's friend, feed, and fuck. Those are the 3 things that most men, they want a friend.
Yeah.
They want to be fed.
Yeah.
And it could be fed food, it could be fed emotionally, and they want sex.
Right.
That's it. I mean, you hear that all the time. We read
And you
it.
want to know something even
and we go,
interesting?
really? There's not more to it than that?
No,
gotta be
there's
more to it
not.
than that.
And so when you have 75% of the
it's
divorces
gotta be
started
more.
by women, you go,
It's like,
you know, it's like when a woman says, I don't understand a man. It's like, that's because you're trying to make him a woman. You know, it's like we don't have to talk about our stuff all the time because if we did, you know, it's, first of all, we want action. Like, here's something that you might not think of, and like, don't give it away to the audience, right? Like, I'm sure I've said this to you before, and I know I have, but act like it's the first time.
okay.
I mean, honestly, even if we're trying to have empathy for each other, how hard is it for a woman to be good in bed? Like I said, by the time you're 12, nothing's going, you know. The other part is, okay, so you have an area of entry, right? Okay, even if you have a problem, there's loops. Okay, so you really don't even have to be good at anything. Now, I know you're going to try to make it like it's this big scientific thing that women have to be awesome, and I'm telling you they don't. They just don't. Sex is all, if it's good, is 99% based on the man. And the reason for it is, without a guy being sexually excited, there's not a lot to be done. All right? I mean, we can talk about making out and all that stuff. Great, got it. But if you're talking about actual intercourse and all these things, without a man being sexually excited, there is no sex to be had. And the thing is, when a woman is in that situation, let's just hope or assume it's in a loving relationship, I get all that. It's emotional, it's caring, it's partners together, and it's beautiful and all that. But the fact is that you can sit back or not or be on top or whatever and experience as much pleasure as fully possible.
John, I knew he wanted to say something over here. I just don't want you to make yourself sound bad on the air or something.
No, it has nothing to do, but it's an
Girls will be
actual
like,
fact.
"What?"
Listen, any man who's a good lover knows this. That, yeah, there's differences with women, but if you can't hold an erection for a certain amount of time, there's no lovemaking to be had. Most guys are done within 2 minutes or so. Okay, that's not good. That sucks. That's horrible. So again, in order to be good at sex, a man has to be good. For a man to be a good lover, there's a lot of things that need to be done. There's very few men out there that are good lovers that can actually do that. Because if you're thinking about it, what it is I'm going to be in the act, but I can't have fun totally. Because you have to pull back. You cannot be overly excited. You have to be like, I've been here so long. Like, I've been this so many times that I can actually write my resume right now while you're going down on whatever it is. Because things will be over before they start. It's true. People don't want to talk about it, but you know what? That's another thing. And let me tell you something. There's a reason why men who are good in bed have incredible self-esteems. Because in order to have a self-esteem, you have to be a master at something. It's not just about getting attention. Right? Like if it was all about the way the man looked, let's say, that's just getting attention, but you're not doing anything. You know, women don't get all these extras because they're great lovers.
Okay.
Listen, you want to be totally disgusting? You can go to like these weird places, like these Asian places, and you can get a 9-year-old girl. Like, stop it with these women being great lovers. In order for a man to be a great lover, it takes a lot more. A lot more.
I just want you to define your terms.
Yes.
Define the term sex.
In that particular thing, I would say more towards intercourse.
Okay. And
Yeah.
That's because you keep saying sex.
Right.
But what you're really talking about is intercourse.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Because
no, that's a good define. That's why I said
sex
kissing
does
and
not
stuff like that.
always include intercourse.
No, that's true. Absolutely
So
true.
just wanted to-
Yeah, but you know what? It's really interesting because society has this thing that men are like oversexed and all this. And I even showed you that article like 2 weeks ago. It's interesting. Most marriage and family therapists will tell you that if there's somebody pulling back from the sexual part of the relationship, it's just as often or more it's the man. And a lot of times it's because he's afraid not to be able to perform up to standard.
But
It's not that he
explain-
doesn't want to.
But explain to people what when you ask the question, define what he meant by sex. What would the other things that are not intercourse that you would consider sex or sexual, so that people understand that difference.
Starting with,
Mhm.
and I'll probably get some flack for this, but starting with flirting.
No, I think that's a huge part of it. Of course it is. Excellent. Yeah,
Being
absolutely.
intimate,
True.
hugging,
I agree.
Holding hands.
I agree.
All of that is, to me, that is the whole package. Intercourse is one
You know,
aspect of it. So you
It's
can
a
be good at all
finale.
the other stuff and not quite so good at this, but
Well, the point is that when intimacy is formed, it's formed with all the foreplay in the beginnings, and that's why people, when they meet up initially, they have all that, because like I said, intercourse, what you just said, is overplayed anyway,
Yeah.
in a sense, because if a guy is impotent or there's something that's not working right, that's not going to matter anyway. And I think most women, and I don't know if this is with guys because I'm a girl, most women like the foreplay in the beginning and the hand hugging and the affection and things like that. The intercourse is because most women can't have an orgasm that way anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few women out there that can. They can. I don't know what the numbers are on that, but I think it's over 70%. Women can't do it just by a guy doing her that way anyway. So even if he is a stud in bed, it's not going to matter if you're with somebody that can't climax with you inside of her.
but here's the crazy thing
So,
about being.
I don't know. We got away from differential self.
No, but it still is because part of it
But-
is being good. You know.
Yeah.
But here's the
Yeah, I
interesting
get it.
thing. Like, let me just go. I was just say, let me just go off what you just said. That's great. Anyway,
Get off. Not here, Joe.
let me let me add to what you're saying.
Oh, God.
Here's the pressure of being a man.
Yeah.
I believe everything you say is true. You're a woman and you know it to be true. And John said it too. It's the affection, it's the foreplay, it's the flirting, it's all of it. It's the oral sex, it's all of it. But try to be a man in a conversation. And someone says, hey man, or the girl says, hey, I wonder if this guy's good in bed. And I go, I'm excellent at hugging. And I also can throw in a little bit of hand holding. And I'm really, what they're thinking is that there's something wrong with your genitalia. That's the first thing that they're thinking. Because it's like, as much as we try to say that, and I've even said this to you, I pride myself, like my whole life, on physicality. Part of it is sex, sorry, whatever, if that offends people. But it comes down to when you go to the sex museum, there's rooms with thousands, not of hand holding, not of making out, it's penises everywhere. Different sizes, different colors, some made out of glass, some made out of rubber, some made out of, right? And you go there and you're sitting with like whoever, I'm not going to name names, but the girls like go through and so this one's nice and that one's nice. It really becomes a penis affair. It's true. Like, and if you're a guy that doesn't want to admit, you have to admit to the fact, and that's what guys are really good at. At some point, you're going to admit reality, and you're going to say, well, part of it is that, unfortunately, even going back to the caveman days, when you look back on the caves and you see the drawings, you see like a little stick figure of a guy, and then there's another extra stick. It's like, even back then, they were infatuated with male genitalia. Like, it's the
agree.
way it is.
I totally agree, but I also think that there's an infatuation with the male gender on the female body too, with certain parts, that the breasts and butts and things like that. And obviously,
Yeah.
I know they're not sexual; they're not supposed to be performing. They're whatever you want to call it. The breasts are not performing sex and that. But I think that over the years too, I mean, maybe penis for the woman has been the what would you call that? Phallic, you know.
It's
something.
the sense of
But
power, like
I
without even say, like even as
visually
a,
speaking, with men too, breasts and a woman's boobies and stuff have always been kind of like a thing for guys too. And when we talk about implants for women, you know, one of the reasons women have felt insecure over their lifetimes, and again, it's cultural, and we can blame culture for it, but women have felt that they're not good enough if they're not big enough, because when we look at adult entertainment, all the women in those films are endowed. Very rarely do you see one that's flat-chested. So,
and here's the part where I would say to you, I don't know what that feels like, because most men that I know, listen, they're just happy to have a topless girl near them. Like, it doesn't matter size. We could care less. If we really want to get specific, probably excitable nipples are more important than anything. That's one of the big turnoffs with implants, is that half the time they kill the sensation.
Yeah.
Like, that's a destroyer for men. It's like men want to know that they're actually in the room, you know, creating something. You're like,
Yeah.
and nothing happens. It's like, oh, well, all right. It's like a
okay.
dead piece of meat. Anyway, okay, so the reason why we got into that.
It's like, there's a reason.
Yeah. So I don't have to know what it's like to be a woman. And you never have to know what it's like to have the pressure to be a man. You don't have to know that to have a good relationship. And that's the thing. So your job is to be the best woman you can. And my job is to be the best man I can. And that's the interdependent relationship, tying it back to that.
Right.
Now, if you want to get super specific about the differentiation of self, it really comes down to two major things. Number one, a clear sense of self. Know who you are. Know where you start and where you end, and where somebody else starts and ends. And I'll get back to that in a second. The other part is, do you know the difference between your feeling and a thought? You have to be able to separate those, because one puts you in reality of what's going on, and the other one are just feelings. In this type of theory, it says, if you don't have a differentiation of self, meaning you can't separate your thoughts from your feelings, and you can't separate from who you are compared to who other people are, you will be in anxiety all the time. You will soak up everybody else's negative energy, and that happens a lot. And again, a while back, this is why this was considered to be a masculine way of looking at things, because again, men and women having a relationship, a man usually looks at a woman who's very emotional. And other theory says that that's normal. It's actually not normal. It's a dysfunction. People who are emotionally dysregulated all the time and taking in other people's emotions and going up and down with who the last person they spoke to was, it's normal in the sense that many people are that way, but it's not healthy. Your job as a person is to be able to lower the anxiety level. And the way you do that is that I have to do it in therapy. I could be next to somebody who just lost 2 people in their family, and they could be totally in grief and total despair. But I'm not in grief and despair. I could be next to somebody that's, outrageously angry at the world. But then I go home, and I don't come home outrageously angry. It's interesting, and I'm not making fun of you only because I think it's a good thing to mention, because a lot of women are like this, and you're part of the culture. And culturally speaking, we think it's normal. It's interesting, like if I come home, I can kind of tell who you spoke to or who your last client was based on how you look.
But there has
I could
to
see
be-
it in your
But
face.
we're going to do a show on this too, and I don't want to talk about that right now, but there is a certain personality. And I just learned this just recently, but we're going to have a show on empaths, and I was requested to do a show on that. And it's highly sensitive people. And it's interesting. It'll be an interesting show to have, because a lot of the empaths, a lot of the description crosses into psychology.
Of course it does. Oh, yeah.
So I want to talk about that, because I do absorb people's energy, to the sense that, if I have a bunch of people in my chair during the day and there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of whatever, it's very hard for me sometimes to shake it when I come home.
Right, and it's so interesting that you say exactly that, because again, part of the differentiation is knowing where you are, where you start and where you end, and where the other person starts and ends. So if you do that, And again, I'm not saying this theory is 100% right. You know, everything has mistakes and holes in it and things like this. But if you buy into that particular theory, this one we're talking about today, this person would say that that shouldn't happen.
But this is
You
where you learn, like you said, when you start doing the differential of self. This is things that I'm learning about myself that there's things that you can do so that those things are not with you at the end of the day or the end of the session. So there's things that you can do to kind of talk yourself, I don't want to say talk off the cliff, but when I'm driving home, I'll say that's really sad that that's happening in that person's life, but it's not my life, and my life is really good. And then I start listing the things in my life that are going well for me rather than hanging on, when you hear things from clients. I mean, I'll hear women all the time talking about stuff, and you go, oh God, I hope that's not going on with Joe. And then I'll think about it, and I'll go, I feel really bad because this is a close friend or a client, but no, my life is this way, and this is what I'm going to do. When I get home, I'm going to do this, and then that's it. Because I know it's affected me in the past a lot.
I know we get to the end. Now, people saw me, I went on my phone when Heidi was talking. I just want to say, before the show, I had something lined up that I was going to use it as an example, and it kind of disappeared. So I can't use that right now. So that's why I just want people to know. And it's also for you, because I want you to remember that, because I didn't want to be disrespectful. Anyway, again, with the differentiation of self, this is a really good, you can use this as a social experiment for yourself, and people out there listening can do this too. Heidi had a really good thought here, and I know this happens to you a lot. Women, more than men, do this thing called rumination. Rumination is an interesting word, because rumination basically means a cow eating food, and they throw it up, but then they eat it again. And then they keep doing the same thing over and over. I know it sounds really disgusting, but rumination in psychology is the same thought revolving in the head over and over and over. And it's usually something negative. It's never something happy. And when you get a bunch of people together that are doing this, it all becomes negative, and then they all start disrespecting their boyfriends and their husbands and their dads or whoever they're talking about, and it becomes very negative, and it goes along. Now a woman there can't be authentic because she wants to fit in, so she has to say something negative about her husband. Now, it's interesting what you say, because sometimes you do what? You throw a monkey wrench in, right? And it's really interesting when you get strong enough to say, hold it, differentiation of self, I'm feeling good. You say something positive, and it changes all of the people in that particular group, does it not? Mm-hmm. So tell me what that's like. Like, you're actually doing a social experiment, and it actually works.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can feed the negativity, or you can change the subject, or you can agree to disagree. I mean, I've been in situations where I've said, I don't really want to discuss that right now because I don't have the same opinion of you. And all of a sudden, everybody's quiet and everybody goes on to something else. Or I've been in a conversation with women that have been carrying on about something, and I'll be like, you know what? I don't agree that that's true. I think that you have a responsibility in that. And what is your responsibility? Where's your part in it? And then all of a sudden, everybody's like, okay, no, and then we start talking about something else. So at any given time, anybody can change the way a conversation is going.
Yeah, we're going to need to do like a lot more shows on this, because I think we got through like 1 page of my notes, and I've got 10. John, how much time do we have? 1 minute. Okay, let me just finish with this. It's kind of like a teaser, or you can look at this to say, okay, what are we really talking about here specifically? This is from the Passionate Marriage. Again, this is a model you can use. It's not to perfection, and there's always other thoughts. Here's number 1, and what you would do is with people is to try to get them to be strong as individuals. Let me go down the list. Number 1, stop blaming your partner. It only makes you feel and sound like a helpless victim. When you eliminate blaming as a way of being, many new ones will open, and you'll start putting attention on yourself where it will do the most good. So that's in that one. The other one, stop taking your partner's reactions personally. Everybody has a right to their feelings, reactions, and judgments. Know that they're all filtered through their own baggage. Always keep your own view of yourself as the most important. And it's always true that listening to your partner can give you insights. Again, listen to your partner. Stop badgering and nudging and nagging and telling them what to do and how to do it. But here's the other part of all
that. You can apply that into the workforce and your other friendships and relationships too.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. It's a huge.
It's not just personal relationships, because you see a lot of that garbage going on in the workforce too, where people want to shove their ideas down they want things done their way in a management type situation, and,
Right.
and there's a lot of ideas in the room,
So
and it's
keep-
okay to stay true to what your belief is in something also, and not get caught up in the work drama or that kind of drama too.
Exactly, so it works in everything. John, give me 30 seconds. Can I give an example? Here's an example that I think everybody, at least our age, can understand. All right, let's take the Beatles, for example, okay? We're talking about relationships here and business at the same time. You get Ringo Starr, he's the drummer. That's what he does. Be the best drummer you can. Don't try to write the songs and don't try to sing. You've got Paul McCartney for that. Paul McCartney's not worried about hitting the little cymbal and doing the drum beats. He's got no part of that. But you know what? They're both together and tight and creating something great. But stop stepping on your partner. Let them be who they're going to be. And your job is to be the best you can be. When we bring that together, then we've got some good stuff going on. All right, this has been the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Perroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini. Have a good weekend.